Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. Today we are going to be talking about The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 2, The Mines of Moria. The Mines of Mandalore. My bad. Just kidding. That's just what it reminded me of when I saw the title.
For sure.
I just had to do it. It was a lot. This episode was actually very interesting, to say the least. A lot of different things going on here, and a very weird looking creature is all I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what to make out of that creature.
Yeah. It's just creepy.
So on this specific episode, what do you think of it?
I loved the callbacks to the previous movies, like the trilogies. That's what I love the most about it. I truly dislike the jump scary and usually there was a lot of scary movie stuff in there. I am not a horror movie watcher at all, so it kept me on edge. Those parts I
That's
did not
fair.
really appreciate.
Hey, that's completely fair. Like, I honestly, when I was going through this whole thing, I'm like, this could be like a horror movie. Like, they could just do a movie all about this cave and this creature just going through and grabbing all these random aliens that happen to still be living there.
Yeah, definitely. It was really creepy.
But the whole episode wasn't too creepy. We did get a little bit of Pelly, even though I'm not sure what to think of her character, honestly. I like her,
Yeah.
but sometimes she's just over the top with her acting. And it's probably not her acting, it's just the way that it just feels out of place. Like, she's a cool character. I like her. And I think it's really funny how she's kind of like a swindler.
I believe at this point they bring us back to her because of Tatooine. Because we literally saw the Tatooine in the first shot, and then we had the Bunta Eve from Phantom Menace and
Yes.
pod racing event, and it just, I think at this point that character comes back just to bring that location, because what else is he going to do on Tatooine?
Yeah, because from the last episode, he was trying to find that memory core for the IG-11 droid, I believe. And so, who else does he know that has parts and has access to these parts? And so it's like, oh, let's go back to Pelly. She's helped me with droids and ships and stuff before. And
definitely.
So it was really cool that they used that opportunity to bring in the Bunta Eve to kind of like connect it back to the prequels. Because I was like, oh, Bunta Eve, that's so cool. I'm pretty sure that's the one that Anakin won, but now it's like 30 years later. It's like, okay, maybe longer than that.
Yeah, definitely. It was really, really nice to see. And that was just the opening for the callbacks. Then we see that she actually gives or sells, I guess. I don't think she would give anything for free, but our 5D4. So it's the astromech that was on New Hope that malfunctioned, and Luke ended up buying R2D2 instead. So that was a huge and very good callback.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that too, because it was like kind of like a redemption for R5D4. It's like, okay, all right, he kind of lost his opportunity when he kind of malfunctioned, but I feel R2 had a little hand in that, to be honest, even though we don't see it on screen. But sounds like something R2 would do.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean the ship is a Naboo ship, the Mandalorians, and then we see the R5D4 as its astromech, and then we're in Tatooine. It's like a full-on Phantom Menace kind of opening vibe, and I really enjoyed that.
Like, I would have been okay if they used the Bunta Eve as, and it's like, oh yeah, you're here for the Bunta Eve. Okay, all right, let's take a little tour. And I would have been okay watching a whole episode just them walking through Tatooine during Bunta Eve, just to kind of see what everybody celebrates like. Because we got a little bit with, I want to say Phantom Menace, but we didn't really get to see the celebration stuff until we actually got to the pod race. So it'd be kind of cool just to kind of see how the community itself works for that.
Yeah, that would be something that would be good for fans like us, like to have all of this background, not just the locations, but actually people who are living in it and their culture and this and
Yeah.
that. But yeah, that's, I guess, is going to be up to our imagination on how to think about
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny because like when we first get introduced to Pelia in this episode, her character is so comical because she's talking to a Rhodian and the Rhodian's like, okay, well, I need my ship. She's like, well, it's Bunta Eve, so it's going to take like forever. So I'm going to have to charge extra for it because I'm working instead of enjoying the Bunta Eve. And she's totally just using that as kind of an excuse to pull more money out of this poor alien. I mean, even though she's the one that took the part from him. So
yeah, I mean, I think also Amy Sedaris is turning it into a like comic opportunity at the moment. Like she's milking it because she also, for example, loses her tooth in the Book of Boba Fett in the fight scene, and then she actually keeps the missing tooth, and you see that in the Mandalorian season 3 as well. So like she is using the character continuation, but to her physical comedy advantage, which was quite funny.
That is true. I actually didn't notice that. And I think that's why she's kind of introduced, because she's kind of introduced as that comical character. It's like just kind of give it a little bit of alleviation for the overall conflict that's going on, because the only reason he's there is just to get a memory bank. And it's like, okay, well, Jawas don't have access. It's a hard part. So let's give you R5D4 and see you later, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I like her interactions with Grogu. It's very cute. But yeah, other than that, it's just basically she is the magnet that brings us back to Tatooine.
That is actually, I forgot about her interaction with Grogu, because he jumps into her arms and she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, who taught you how to leap like a Lerman? And it's very interesting. There is a book called, oh, no, it's from Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Season 1.
I don't remember the season, but yeah, they are the lemur-looking creatures, which are also called Lermans, so
yes.
you just
I totally forgot about that until now. I wrote that in my notes and I was like, oh, it's a good callback to the Clone Wars. Yeah. And it's just really cool how they're tying everything in. It's like, okay, well, we got one project, so it's not just by itself, but we have another project. So like, oh yeah, let's tie this in. Because I know I was recording with Sam yesterday for the Bad Batch Season 3, and they mentioned the Haxian Prime, or the Haxian Brood, which is the bounty hunter group from the Jedi Fallen Survivor series. And so I love all the callbacks that they're throwing into these things to kind of like not only give character continuity, but also lore continuity.
Definitely. This is something I truly appreciate with the newer projects of Star Wars, because it does not seem like just, I mean, the trilogies within themselves make a lot of sense, but we get a lot of background, and it's just not like a galaxy that just came out of nowhere, but we have so many little bits and pieces that makes it into an entire living organism and a galaxy that we feel like, oh, okay, so we know a lot. It's not just like, oh, it is what it is. Like there is no such thing as this does not have any explanation, but we actually can say a lot about what is going on, not just with our main characters, but always somewhere else in the galaxy as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this episode, because I know in the last like couple seasons, I'm like, I'd really like to see Mandalore brought into a live action scenario, because they did a little bit in Rebels where we got to actually go to the planet, and Clone Wars was full of moments on Mandalore. But I was like, man, every scene that they did in the animated series looked like it would be something cool live action. And we even get to go to the planet in a live action format this episode, like this whole season actually. And this episode was full of callbacks from Clone Wars on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we learn a lot more about it. And it's very interesting. Like he's going down to thinking that this is like a cursed planet. He's teaching Grogu a little bit about navigation and even a callback to Concordia. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember that from the Death Watch. That's where they're stationed.
Yeah, exactly. And we also, I mean, you said bringing Mandalore to live action, definitely, but the way they did it is also incredible. When I saw Mandalore, it was breathtaking. The set design, I guess a lot of it is because of the volume, the interactions with the planet looks really realistic. And yeah, that's as I mean, we will get into it a little more, I guess, later, but yeah, the connections and the things that we're supposed to know from the Clone Wars and the things that we've watched before, it's just making it a lot more fun to watch these episodes as fans who have watched all of the previous work. I can say that.
Yeah, so with that being said, going into Mandalore, what were you expecting before he actually broke through the atmosphere?
Um, Good question. I mean, I thought we were going to see something much worse. I guess the planet being uninhabitable is horrible, but it looked so pretty. So I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't look like a horror set. So I don't know. I think it looked very pretty, just aesthetically pleasing.
Fair enough. I was low key kind of expecting it to be kind of. I wasn't expecting it to be that terraformed as it was,
Mm-hmm.
but it, like you said, like the way that they designed the sets and based on what we know about the purge and what the technology they used to kind of like destroy the surface and how it kind of turned everything into glass was actually kind of cool to be able to see it the way they did it, because you look at the caves and I was like, okay, this place looks very much like it's completely uninhabitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that Mando basically is like, okay, yeah, well, from all the terraforming that was done here, we have no communication. So that's another thing I wasn't expecting, is that it completely created like this magnetic field that disrupted communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like you get down to the surface, it's like, yep, yep, we're alone down here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is there are a lot of ways to show on television or film how a destroyed environment looks like. And I think this was one of the most visually stunning one of them. There was, I mean, we can look at a lot of different sci-fi and fantasy works, and yeah, this one looked really, really good.
Yeah, and for an episode about them going to the planet, it's
Mm-hmm.
really cool that they spent like an entire episode of just being in a cave. And we got to see look like it was a city underground.
Yeah.
And just to see how city is like been there for a while. It was brand new. I wouldn't say brand new, but like it wasn't like abandoned for too long. But it looked like it was an ancient city.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just crazy, like going in there. It's like, okay, man, this city used to be thriving, full of Mandalorians, and
Yeah.
here it looks like it's completely been abandoned for centuries.
I think that puts things into perspective really well because we know that the destruction, um, well, what was the name? Something of Mandalore, I cannot remember. Was pretty drastic, but it was not that long ago. I mean, Bo-Katan still remembers, a lot of people still remember. Maybe our Mando does not, but that's because he is relatively young. And to give us that and to show us the scale of destruction, that it looks like a city that has been abandoned centuries ago or is from the distant past, I think they did a really good job at showing how the how big of a destruction, how big of a catastrophe passed there.
Yeah, and because so like he basically just grew up on Concordia, so I know he's relatively young, but I mean, even if he was like alive around that time for the purge, because I would assume he would be based on his age, that he'd be at least a kid. So I'm not exactly sure when they saved him, but it looked like when the first season he was saved around when he was like I want to say like 10 or 11, and so he probably spent a lot of his time on Concordia and wasn't actually on Mandalore for the actual purge, but he was scattered with them.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we see him wielding the dark saber for the first time this season.
Oh yeah, that's right,
And
with those crazy creatures.
exactly, the creatures are crazy. They look like out of a very old sci-fi movie, but um yeah, but they still look good. Yeah, we see him wielding the dark saber and he still has problems with it, and we see how much he actually struggles with the dark saber when we compare it later on in the episode to how Bo-Katan wields it. So that was pretty cool to see. I think giving us that contrast between the two characters was really, really well done.
Yeah, I really like that too. I don't know, seeing the dark saber on screen, no matter what, always looks super cool, and
Yeah.
with the sounds and everything. But it was really cool to get to see him kind of wield it a little bit more, and it is very interesting that he's still struggling with it. And you figure that if he's had it this amount of time, like he would have probably already been a little bit more accustomed to it. But it feels like he doesn't use it too often, even though he has it. I feel like he's still very heavily reliant on his blasters.
I believe, I think he does not use it at all. I think he uses it only when it is absolutely necessary, which might be like the lot. It might actually be the last time he used it when we saw him use it. I don't think he uses it in between because for Sabine, for example, it was after she started actually using it and training with it, it was much easier to wield. So I believe if he was actually training with it, trying to use it, trying to connect with it, just like I think it was Kanan explaining that the kyber crystal in there needs, like, you should
Hmm.
have a connection with it. So I think he doesn't use it unless it is absolutely 100% necessary. So that's why I think he's still struggling with it. And to be fair, we know that he doesn't want it. So why would he try to connect with it? He basically wanted to get rid of it and give it to Bo-Katan as soon as possible, but that's not how things work.
No, she's like, I didn't win it from you. I'm not going to fight you because I have no beef with you. I may be frustrated because you have it, but I'm not gonna challenge you because it's like, what's the point? And I think that's why this episode was very important, was for it to be a stepping stone for Bo-Katan to have the Darksaber. Because the only way that you can win the Darksaber is or lose the Darksaber is by defeat.
Yeah.
And sadly, we see Mando, he's walking through the cave and this giant thing just comes out of the ground and just envelops him. I was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And turns out to be the way that Bo-Katan is able to get the Darksaber and actually feel like she actually won it rather than it just being handed over to her, essentially.
Definitely. I mean, she chose a different way. She chose not to go with conflict, which is something that is deeply ingrained in Mandalorians. They are very well accustomed to solving their problems via fighting, but she chose to go a different way, and she actually ended up in a much more honorable place by winning the Darksaber by actually saving someone. So that was, I think, a pretty cool touch.
Which actually was a really good character development for her. But before I jump onto her real quick, I actually wanted to mention the helmet that Mando picks up. Like, very crazy to see, like, just armor just chilling in caves. Like, it kind of brings back, like, man, that belonged to somebody, and you kind of feel for his people because he's looking at it. And he doesn't even get a chance to think about it. But, I mean, honestly, like, I'm just curious what's going through his head when he picks up that helmet.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, on one hand, my head says that he might be thinking very practically, like, oh, more Beskar. Like, my people need this. That might be one thing. The other thing might be that
Okay.
he might actually be feeling the connection and feeling for the people. But I guess that's why the creature actually hides itself in a place like that, just so that it can attract people who might be looking for Beskar or looking for survivors or something else in Mandalore.
So that creature must have known Mando came into that place, and so that means that creature's a little. I mean, it's obviously a smart creature, but I'm wondering if it planted there on purpose or for how long it was sitting there. It's like, okay, I'm gonna stay here for 20 years until somebody walks in and grabs it, or he heard Mando's ship and then planned ahead.
Could be, but we will see in the upcoming episodes that there is something actually going on in Mandalore. So
Mm-hmm.
the creature might actually be preparing to ensnare one of those things or people.
That is true. I didn't even think about that. I forgot all about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I try not to jump too further into the season. I mean, we just did a slight spoiler by saying that Bo-Katan will end up with a Darksaber, but please forgive us for that. The show has been out for a while. There's no more spoilers.
Yeah, so if you're watching the episodes as we're discussing it, we apologize. But if you've already seen everything, you're just listening to this talk, even better.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I mean, Mando does get captured pretty easily, and
He
I'm
does.
actually really glad Grogu didn't, because I mean, it sets it up for the rest of the episode for Grogu to go and get help. Like, I was thinking, Grogu, grab the Darksaber and just do your little Jedi thing, whatever Luke
Oh
taught you. But
wow, you really wanted that to happen?
I did. I mean, what?
Oh,
Like,
that
he
would have
trained with Luke, so I mean,
that would have
let's see his
broken the
training a little bit other than
internet.
jumping.
Everybody would have been like, no, that tiny creature cannot handle the Darksaber. No, 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 no. I think the way they went with it there was the smarter choice. I would have loved seeing him handling a lightsaber. I really would, but I don't think that would be the right creative choice.
No, it would look very awkward because the thing is like massive. Like, even Yoda had a smaller lightsaber.
Yeah.
So for Grogu to handle the Darksaber it would look very awkward. But I was just like thinking, it's like, okay, I'm like, why don't you save him, Grogu? You got the Force.
That'd be very cool though, yeah.
But he ended up going up to Bo-Katan, and I love Bo-Katan's, like, the way that she reacted to seeing the ship. She's like, She's like, I told him to leave me alone. Why is he coming back here? All right, let me go tell him off and just get him out of here. Like she's getting ready to throw hands until Grogu kind of like peeked out. It's like, oh yeah, hey, what's up? How you doing?
That is so cute, that interaction. I mean, she goes there and she's like, I will get rid of him for once and for all. And then she sees Grogu and she's like, what happened? What's wrong? Where's your dad?
Yeah, all the
Oh
anger
my
just
God.
kind of like fled from her. Like she's just like, oh, Grogu, okay, no hate here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
I
very
mean,
happy that Grogu made it and he got Bo-Katan because that creature is just hideous. I always disliked Grievous. It looked like, especially when he coughed and so on, that was really like creepy to me. And to see that
I
creature
love
just
Grievous.
I mean, it's a cool character, but to watch him is sometimes really, it was at least to me very
I could see
painful.
that.
I was like, oh
I could see
God, this
that.
is like, it would make like squelchy sounds and it's just yucky overall. And seeing that creature like being very grievousy, that's exactly what I wrote in my notes, grievousy type of
Grievousy.
organism. Yeah, it was really ugh. So I'm happy Grogu managed to get Bo and get some help.
And I'm actually pretty sure that's kind of why they made this creature look the way they did, was kind of another callback to Grievous, because he was such an important character, especially for the Clone Wars.
Definitely.
But
But I wonder what is this creature? I mean, we know Grievous was he was put into this shape. So he just like some of it he did himself. Most like in the beginning he had help. So this creature that we saw in Mandalore, where did it come from? Did it actually was it extremely intelligent that with whatever he could it could it built this thing, or was it built by someone else? That was a question for me.
I'm assuming the way that it's operating it, that it knew how to build it, like it built it itself. Because as Bo-Katan's going through the cave, like they come across the other aliens that are in there, and she's like, "Oh wow!" She's like, "Yeah." Before, when these cities were flourishing, then all these creatures were beyond the city walls,
Mm-hmm.
and so it does beg the question, like, how intelligent is this creature? Because definitely smarter than the one that Mando is fighting and the one that Bo-Katan shoots. So this one could have just been. I'm wondering if it's just like an alien that just happened to fly down there, was visiting Mandalore, and then the purge happens, lost its ship, and just took shelter in the cave for however long it's been in there,
Mm-hmm. Oh, could be.
and just probably just grabbed a bunch of parts from the city and it's like, okay, well, let's just put all this, and this together and go from there.
Yeah.
But that is a very interesting thought, because we don't really see this creature in anything else that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's do we I'm trying to remember, do we see any other creatures that are built like those? I don't think so, right? I think yeah.
Because it's interesting, because it's just an machine. Like I thought the thing itself was just a droid with it, kind of like how you said Grievous, like maybe kind of like a half humanoid or like half flesh thing, half droid. But when we get Bo-Katan fighting the thing, she cuts it in half. It's like, okay, all right, it's done. But it's like, nope, that thing is still alive. It's like a
Yeah,
little tiny creature.
exactly. Exactly. It's really yeah, it's basically like I remember was it from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like that brain that controls an entire body? It looked
Yeah,
really yeah, it looked very similar to that. It made me think of that.
yeah. I actually didn't think about that, but yeah, that's actually a good kind of analogy for it. It's kind of like how it's controlling it is just like a little thing that's just kind of like, it's like, okay, tiny little creature, but giant thing. I was actually personally thinking like Gundams. I don't know if you know Gundam Wing or anything like that.
Ah, okay. I'm not like I know what it is, but I'm not well versed in what they are. But
Or
yeah,
I'd also
okay.
say Pacific Rim. That's probably
Mm,
something that most people are more familiar with other
yeah,
than anime. But I mean,
definitely.
if people are watching this, I'm sure a lot of people are anime people too. They
Yeah.
generally go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But I did like that we got a moment with Bo-Katan and Grogu because Bo-Katan, we got a different side of her because she is like this very tough, heavy character.
Hmm.
But with Grogu, she's just like creating a bunch of like random like conversations. She's like, oh yeah, she's like, how you must be really good with the Force if you were able to find me. Even
Yeah.
though, let's be real, R5D4, the strongest
Yeah.
droid, astromech droid, did all the
Exactly.
work. But good job, Grogu, jumping in the cockpit and all that. So I mean, I totally get it, but she gave Grogu too much credit. It's like poor
I wonder
R5.
that. I want to know. I mean, R5 was R5 there already? No, I don't think so. R5 has never been in the planet that Bo-Katan was. Was he? Was it? Why do I?
No, because the previous episode he goes and visits Bo-Katan, but then he leaves and goes to meet Polly or Pelly, and then gets the
Mhm.
droid in this episode.
Yeah.
So,
So actually, maybe it was not R5D4. Maybe it was actually Grogu.
but I mean, I'm sure the navigation's in the ship, and R5 just knew how to access it.
Ah, that's true. That's true. The ship would have a navigation backlog that could be accessed. That's true. Okay.
But I'll give Grogu a little bit of credit because Mando was trying to teach him how to navigate a little bit. He's like, oh yeah, navigation's important as a Mandalorian. He's like, there's
Mm.
Concordia, there's the Mandalore, and give him a little bit of backstory on that. So Grogu kind of had something to do with it, but I'll give most of the credit to R5 because Grogu can't really talk at this point, so he can't really say, hey, R5, take me here.
Hmm.
And I'm just imagining like a little toddler trying to drive a car, can't even reach the pedal. So that's kind of how I see Grogu. So had to be
That's true.
R5.
That's true. But that toddler actually wiped out some creatures with his force abilities, and that was great to witness. So he is strong
See,
with the force. Maybe that's what she was talking about. Like, your dad got captured, but you survived and found me. You must be strong with the force.
yeah, that is probably how we can take it because that's what he should have done with that monster that got Amanda is like, oh, let's just use the force, pick him up, throw him against the wall. Didn't even need the dark saber.
Yeah.
But I mean, they needed a way to bring Bo-Katan down and to get the dark
True.
saber in order for story development later. So I get why
Yeah.
they didn't use Grogu at this point and kind of just hold it as okay, yeah, Grogu's still not like a warrior yet.
Yeah. That is true. We still should remember that out of that duo, Mando is the warrior. And if he got captured, then yeah.
I mean, this episode, like, he seems to be falling into a lot of traps. Just saying.
Mm. Yeah, that's
But
true. Now that we're nitpicking a little bit, yeah.
maybe just a little bit. But it's just for story development. Like, I totally get why they did certain things in this episode just for that specific thing. Because we did get to see Bo-Katan pick up the darksaber,
Mm.
fight with it, and even using her blasters was pretty cool. Like
Mm.
we get to see how much of a warrior she actually is
Definitely.
and
That
how
is,
easy she
yeah.
can fight.
that is something that I put like in all capital letters in my notes. Bo-Katan fighting. First of all, I don't know if they made a lot of adjustments to her costume, to her armor, but it looks amazing. And then we see her shield and how she wields it, how she is a true Mandalorian warrior. It was gorgeous. It was beautifully made. I really enjoyed it. So her also on top of that wielding the dark saber. But yeah, I so far, because this is what we talked about in the first episode too, especially with Grief Karga's costume. But I think so far in season 3, the costume design is out of this world. It's at its best.
I do have to agree with that because a lot of people have actually nitpicked this entire season, saying it wasn't that great. However, I have to agree with you. I never really paid too much attention to the costumes until this rewatch, and that's actually one of the things I actually put down. I was like, the way that they brought her character into a live action format was beautifully done. Like from her movements to the way her armor like is fluid with her movements. Like they paid a lot of attention to the design to make it not look so awkward. Because when I saw Mando in his armor and he was fighting, I could see he was a little bit slower because
Right? Yeah.
the pieces
He's
just
a bit
didn't work with him.
clunkier.
Yeah.
Definitely. He's a bit clunkier. But with Bo-Katan, it looks gorgeous. It looks insanely good. You would believe that this person actually fights for a living.
Yeah. And the way that that's actually another thing that I put down was because you mentioned the arm shield. I thought that was like so cool. I was like, yes, she's got the dark saber and the shield. I was like, okay, let's go. Definitely looks like a knight in armor.
Definitely. I mean, I really like the fact that they are okay. So the show is called The Mandalorian, and it has made us believe that we are talking about this one specific Mandalorian. But as you said, it's actually plural, and we are seeing Bo-Katan shine much, much, much brighter than our Mando.
Yeah, which is interesting because I know the first season was about like actually Din Djarin, and then as the show becomes, that's why I would say they named the show perfectly is because it jumps from the Mandalorian to the Mandalorian, and so we get to actually see the rise of the Mandalorians. And I know originally Cara Dune was supposed to be like a bigger part in the story until all that crazy political stuff that went through. But despite Cara Dune leaving, it gave an opportunity for Bo-Katan to kind of come in and shine instead of just being like a one episode character. She's becoming a bigger part of the entire series, which her development in the show is as good as it was in Clone Wars. Like I love seeing her on screen. Like if she replaced Din Djarin for the rest of the series, I'd be okay.
Really?
I like Mando, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about Bo-Katan that just kind of like makes her more interesting at this point.
I mean, I own a helmet of Bo-Katan, so there is no questioning my love for her. But yeah, okay, all right.
Well, I mean, I have Mando's helmet too, but so maybe a little bit extreme to say like her replacing him, but I'm glad that she's like part of the series and kind of like shining the way that she is and becoming almost an equal to Mando as far as the lead character.
Definitely.
I think that'd be fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. And to be fair, Book of Boba Fett, I think was good that we had it, but I would definitely not mind having a separate Bo-Katan series.
Yeah, and actually speaking of Boba Fett, I really feel bad for him because Mando took 2 of his episodes, right?
Yeah.
And all we get is a mention of Boba Fett in this episode because Pelly is like, "Oh, it's like more crime rising," or what about Boba Fett? And it was like, I'm like, is that all we're gonna get of him this season? I'm like, poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what's gonna happen there because it caused a lot of backlash there as well.
I know, especially with Tamara Morrison, like he was kind of
Yeah.
bitter about it, and so I'm wondering if we're gonna get more Boba Fett or if it's just kind of like, eh.
Now that would be such a shame because if they were gonna do that, why do Book of Boba Fett in the first place?
Kenobi and Boba Fett were two fan favorites that they just tossed in there just as project. Like you can tell they didn't put a lot of care into it because it was just more like the fans want this. Let's just put this out there and make them happy. Because with Andor, Mandalorian, and some of the other projects that they've done, you can see they put a lot more care and attention to the characters. And a lot of people are complaining about the nostalgic characters rather than the newer ones.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, because of the sequels, it has people want to go back to old Star Wars. It's always this discussion. We always talk about this, the originals, the prequels. People love, I mean, I told you from the first episode that I've been on, I'm a prequels girl because that's what I
Yeah.
grew up with. And that is what I will love and that is what I will want to see forever when I watch Star Wars. It's exactly the same thing for everyone and it's basically safe to say almost everyone, not me. I like everything Star Wars, hates the sequels. And um seeing this, I mean, there's always going to be people who want to go back and revive or somehow bring back or integrate the characters that we have loved before. We see that, I mean, we see that with Book of Boba Fett. We see that with the Kenobi series. We see that with, I mean, Ahsoka does not really count because Clone Wars, its own thing completely. But nobody wants to bring back anyone or move forward with the sequel characters. So that is, yeah, understandable.
And here's my thing for that. It's like I love seeing all this new stuff, but I am so ready to be outside of the Skywalker saga. And I totally forgot that this is what we should have discussed before we even started Mandalorian, this discussion, but that's why I'm so excited for the Acolyte. So
Yeah.
I do want to take a few minutes after we're done with Mando just to talk about that because there's a lot to talk about there. But it's all these new characters that I do enjoy these new characters, and I'm so ready to kind of like break out, and that's kind of why I'm enjoying Mandalorian is because yes, we get some tiebacks to Ahsoka because it's bringing her in, but they're doing something new with her character. It's a new character arc, and then same with Bo-Katan, and they're just kind of like tying into Mando's story, and it's becoming something much bigger.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I wonder, I mean, at the moment, to be fair, again, spoilers for the rest of the season, but I think they tied up Mandalorian season 3 finale with like a pretty good bow and it looks really good. There's
mhm.
no reason to, but I really want to know what's going to happen with these characters because even though we can stop with Mando's story, I think we have a lot to see on Grogu's part. So I really want to know how that's gonna just shape up in the future.
So there will be a season 4 of Mando because originally was supposed to be 3 seasons, but I think I mentioned in a few podcasts before is that they were doing a whole series of cartoon, but now that she's not part of it because it's like the Rangers of the New Republic that got canceled. So a lot of the story arcs that they're using was brought here into Mando, and so he's going to continue on a 4th season, and they're just going to start doing a Mando verse rather than just cutting it off and doing something else. So we will definitely get more Grogu in the future. I mean, they announced the movie, the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So I'm very curious to see where they're going with that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we are getting movies. I guess the first movie is going to be from Favreau, right? Not from Filoni first.
I
I
believe they were working on it together. I mean, considering Dave Filoni is like spot, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Dave Filoni's movie, but
okay.
Favreau is helping him with it. So
I was thinking that we thought it was 100% going to be Filoni, but then it ended up then Filoni is now the um oh yeah, okay, okay. Favreau is the producer on The Mandalorian and Grogu. Oh no, he is also the director.
so that might not be Dave Filoni's movie then.
Yeah. That's what I remember that we talked about because we thought it was going to be definitely a Dave Filoni movie coming first, but no, it's actually Favreau. Favreau is coming with the Mandalorian and Grogu. The Filoni project is still not named. It's still as untitled Dave Filoni's Star Wars project. I guess though that would be that would be connecting to Ahsoka, not maybe like of course maybe to the Mandalorian as well, but I think it would be Ahsoka heavy because Filoni would never leave Ahsoka's creative direction to someone else.
And it would make more sense for Favreau to be doing a Mandalorian movie because that's his creation.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
So it'd be the same thing. It's like I would expect nobody else other than him to lead this project.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he is really good at letting people direct the episodes, which give us a lot of different types of episodes. Like we see some Western type of episodes, we see some very like comedically heavy episodes and so on and so forth. So we have different types of episodes, but writing it and the creative direction, I don't think Favreau would also ever uh just give someone the reins on a project about the Mandalorian.
yeah, definitely. Because he's still producing a lot of it. Like he's still involved. And so Favreau being part of it is expected. And I'd be sad if he wasn't. Because all the creative freedom that he's given all these different directors for these episodes have been actually pretty solid. And especially because we get scenes where we have this tough Bo-Katan, then she comes and saves Grogu and Mando, and we get some tender moments of her giving like backstory.
Yeah, they definitely managed to translate the different facets of characters. None of the characters are just one-sided or very superficial. Everybody looks very fleshed out in this universe, except for the, of course, comedic relief characters.
Yeah, that is true. I do like that we got Bo-Katan talking about her family, and we get to know a little bit more about her dad, and
Yeah.
kind of gives a tie to Amanda a little bit because she talks about her dad. She's like, "Yeah, I submitted to the creed because I did not want to embarrass him," and so I'm wondering if that was kind of like a tie-in to making a jab at Satine, saying that
Yeah.
she was an embarrassment because she was a pacifist in front of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But
Um, I wonder why we have never heard her name. That is something that I'm really wondering why we never hear the name Satine, Duchess, something, but they are literally just skirting past it, somehow avoiding saying that name, and I really wonder why is the reason for that.
maybe it's too hard for Bo-Katan to speak
Oh, oh, don't
because
say
that was a big
that.
turning. That was it was. I mean, because that was a big turning point for her because Darth Maul kills her, And
Mhm.
that's kind of when Bo-Katan slowly starts turning away from the Death Watch and starts like going, okay, well, Death Watch isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And maybe it's because she lost her, and it's just a
I
hard memory
mean,
for her.
can you imagine if, because we said there is a lot of character development in Bo-Katan, and imagine her being a bit more pacifist and a bit more like peace um motivated, is like her reason would be that she's Satine, and she would say something like this is for you, sister, or something like that, like cheesy but beautiful.
Yeah,
I would cry. I would lose it.
I would love that, but considering just how her character is now and where they're going with the rise of the Mandalorians, I don't see her becoming pacifist because it's more about like, okay, we're fighting to bring our people back. But I would love for them to kind of bring another tender moment, because they could have easily done it when she was talking to Grogu about her being friends with Jedi and stuff, and that she could have easily could have brought it in there. I think there'll be more opportunity. I just don't think they, with the direction they're going, I don't think they found the right opportunity to do it.
Mm.
But yeah, I would love to see a mention of her, because we got a mention of Kanan and Ahsoka, so I'd love some references to some other big named characters.
Yeah, that would be great. We have gotten a lot of references in Ahsoka, of course, but yeah, I hope we get more, and I definitely think Satine deserves some kind of reference, mention,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, in any of the shows. Okay, we talked a lot about Bo. Let's talk about what happens in the living waters of Mandalore.
Bo saves Mando.
Yeah, she does not. This is what I loved about that scene. She does not hesitate for a single second. She
Mm-mm.
does not think like he can die and I can retrieve the dark saber. No, she does not hesitate for a single second and dives right in. It is beautiful.
Yeah, and that's, I know you said I was nitpicking earlier, but I'm like, he literally just falls into the water and she saves him twice this episode.
Oh,
So
that's
I was
good.
wondering, because at first I thought he got pulled in because we get to see the mythosaur stare Bo-Katan in the eye, but we find out later he just slips. It's like, come on, Mando. I'm like, what's
Yeah.
going on, bro? You're supposed to be like this fearless bounty hunter that people know who you are and they fear you. And if Bo-Katan wasn't there, you would have drowned right there.
I mean, why would he go into the water without his jetpack? Why?
He thought he was safe, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he was emotional. He was taking the creed again. I guess he
Hmm.
didn't. Yeah. To be
This
fair,
is the way.
yeah, that was the way. I guess he lost a lot of blood beforehand as well. So maybe he was not making the most solid decisions.
Okay, I'll accept that because he was being drained. So I'll take it down to that right there.
Yeah.
That's
Which is,
actually a
by
good
the
way to
way,
look at it.
disgusting. Like, why did we need the body horror element in there? But it was really, yeah, that whole cave and like the Grievous Sea thingy encounter was horrendous.
Yeah. Like I said, it was needed for it to make sense for Bo to have the dark saber later on. And
That's true. They covered their bases twice.
here this moment was for Bo-Katan to see the mythosaur. And so now we're getting two things that define her leadership: that she saw the mythosaur, it still exists, and two, she's going to have the dark saber. So it's going to give her two elements of being a leader.
Yeah,
And she gets the
definitely.
opportunity to save Grogu. I mean, not Grogu, Mando. And she's even like, I'll forever be in her debt, but I need to go down to the waters. And she's like, I can't believe we're following these childish tales. And I like how he countered with, if this is our creed, it's like, yeah, so what if I'm following these childish tales? Like, but without it, who are we? Like, what do we stand for? And he starts to get her to think, because in the next few episodes, we get to see a little bit more of her character development there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I mean, with whatever happened in this episode, there is no questions about the legitimacy of the leadership of Bo-Katan. So I think this is a very good setup in that sense.
And really happy to see it, because I was either thinking they're going to lead Mandalore together, or something's going to happen for her to kind of take a role. And the way that this episode ended made it very valid for me. And it's like, okay, cool. This is where we're going. Epic. So overall, really good episode. Really good episode.
Definitely. Definitely, we got a lot of background on Mandalore. We saw the planet itself. We saw how extensive the damage was after the purge. We saw the myth, like the entrance of the living waters of the mines. We saw a little bit of the mythology behind Mandalore, and then Mandalore the Great, and so on. And we also saw the mythosaur. We got a lot of good backstory with Bo-Katan and the transfer of power that will follow from now on. So, yeah, that was a pretty good episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get into the next one. So I believe that will cover it for this episode. But before we end, I do want to take a few minutes and talk about the accolades. Get your thoughts on it. What do you think of the trailer?
I mean, I'm not sure. I am very excited. But I did not do any research on the timeline of the show, for example. I mean, I know that it is in the past because the Jedi Temple is still there and so on. But I
It's
have
not prequel era.
when is it then?
It's because
Before?
the High Republic. I know they've been doing a lot of books with those, and so
Mhm.
I want to say it's at least 100 or 200 years before the prequels.
Okay, so okay.
So we get some good old-fashioned Jedis right here.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as research, like just the trailer itself, like it was really cool. Not gonna lie, I thought the first opening line to the trailer was kind of cheesy, because it sounded very like, because I know some quotes in The Rings of Power were super cheesy, and it just seems like they're kind of trying to make good quotes, but they just came off very wrong, because like they're trying to redo Obi-Wan's quote. So it's like, okay, close your eyes and don't trust your eyes, because they deceive you or something like that. I was like, just say what Obi-Wan said. I'm like, we don't need to rewrite that. And it just, the way it sounded to me, it sounded cheesy. But and then I'm not gonna lie, like in the trailer, he's like, okay, what do you guys see? And I believe it was a little girl that said it. She's like, I see fire. And then I just started thinking Lord of the Rings right there, of Ed Sheeran's song.
Yeah. Started playing in my head immediately. It might be the recent concert that I've been to, but it
That's too,
immediately
yeah.
started playing in my head.
But other than like the opening of the trailer, like watching the rest of it, it looks like it's very well like done. Like it looks clean, it looks crisp.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of high hopes for this. Like looks like it's gonna be a fun show. Especially with the last scene that we see in the trailer. It's like you have the lightsaber flying through the forest, and then a hand catches it. And then you see like
Yeah.
5 or 6 Jedi all turn on their lightsabers and run. I was like,
And they have orange lightsabers.
mm-hmm.
They
So
have
we're gonna get
orange
some more
lightsabers.
lightsaber colors.
Yeah, that is very exciting. I mean, to be fair, Carrie-Anne Moss, she cannot do anything wrong. Trinity for life. So,
Is
I'm
that one of
really
the
excited.
actors in it, or?
Yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss, the female Jedi that we follow around with the thing, Trinity from Matrix.
Oh yes, okay. I don't. You're right. I thought I recognized her too. I saw that.
Oh, you didn't make the connection until now?
I wasn't paying too much attention, but I just remember like looking at the trailer, going, "She looks familiar." Okay,
Yeah,
that
that's
gets
her.
that gets me more hyped now because I like her character. I like her as an actress very, very much. Like she has everything I've seen her in, even
Yeah.
the new Matrix movie, which was terrible. She did good in.
Yeah, I mean, it was, ugh, that was the new Matrix movie was Trinity's movie, so they
Yeah,
did good on her character. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
but yes, I'm actually now that I know who she, like I know who she is, but like now that I kind of see the facial recognition from the trailer, now I'm like more excited for the series because if she's in it, it's got to be good.
Like
And I know she's going to be doing some of her own stunts, so I'm expecting like some cool like fights with her in it.
exactly, that was my first thought. I was like, oh, okay, her martial arts
Hmm.
practice will come into play in this.
So I will be mad if they don't utilize that at all. Especially because I know Star Wars is kind of like trying to create like strong female characters, and I know they've kind of failed with a few of the characters
Mm,
because they've just kind of done it wrong.
yeah.
But with Bo-Katan, Cara Dune, and a few other characters that they've done really well with, I'm expecting this character to stand out or maybe even outshine all of them. They might even be on. Like I could see her being on a Padme and Leia level.
Oh wow. Oh, that would be insane. That just gave me goosebumps thinking about it. Oh,
But
that would
those are
be
like our
so
top
amazing.
two. Those are our top two in Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to beat those as far as being. I know
Okay,
we
I
try not to curse here on the podcast, but the most badass females in all of Star Wars,
yeah.
or all of
I
cinema, to be actually, and
yes.
Sigourney Weaver.
Thing Sigourney Weaver, but as herself.
Yes, as herself. She doesn't need a
Yeah.
character. She just
Yeah,
needs to be
no.
her.
Exactly. Exactly. That
So,
is, I mean, it should be I love Padme, especially her character in the Clone Wars, because I think she doesn't
mhm.
shine quite as much in the prequels. But we have to be honest, Princess Leia is on a whole other level. Like there is Princess Leia, and then there are like a couple of empty steps, and then you
Mhm.
start with Padme, and then
Oh yeah, Carrie
go
Fisher,
from
all
there.
the the top. She's the top of like. I think she's the one that like when I think of strong female characters, Leia is like the first one that I ever think of, and that's like back from like the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah. I
So
am racking my brain, trying to think about a strong female character. And like Princess Leia, Hermione, um, and then it's just blank.
I'd say Trinity here, Sigourney Weaver,
Trinity, okay. Yeah.
and then I forget her name. Still, please, guys, please forgive me, but the main actress in Underworld.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Kate Beckinsale.
Yes, Kate Beckinsale.
Celine, her character's name?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
So I'm expecting Trinity to be like when I think of awesome characters, like I want her to be on that level because she's already
Mm.
Trinity. So she's got an opportunity to make another character that's going to be pretty epic, in my opinion.
I hope she has a good and memorable name because Otherwise, we're just gonna call her Trinity for the rest of time.
Sadly, and that's what's funny because that's what Mark Hamill is known as is Luke, pretty much. Even though he's done like other memorable roles like the Joker.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know Harrison Ford was trying not to be just known as Han Solo, and so he's done like Indiana Jones and a few other select characters that it's like, okay, Harrison Ford, he's done this, and that, so he's not like stuck in one role.
Okay, when you think about Harrison Ford, would you call Han or Indiana? Indy.
As big of a Star Wars fan as I am,
Indy,
I call
right?
him Indy.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was thinking too. That's what I wanted to ask.
Because he is Han Solo, but Indiana Jones is probably a more memorable role, I think, for him. Not saying that Han Solo isn't, but Indiana Jones is more, honestly, prominent when it comes to the fandom.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
Star Wars is a little bit more saturated, but Indiana Jones is a little bit more general for everybody. It's like, oh yeah, I saw this movie. It's cool.
when you think about Star Wars, you can also think about a lot of other people like Darth Vader,
Mhm.
Luke, Obi-Wan, and so on. But when it's Indiana Jones, it's Indy. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. Because that's how I see her. And for Carrie-Anne Moss's character in The Acolyte, her name is actually kind of cool. I just looked it up. It's Indara.
That is a cool name.
I really like the name for the character. So
That is
yeah, The
really
Acolyte.
cool name.
Pretty excited.
Me
And
too.
for anybody that's interested, there's going to be 8 episodes, and it's going to be the longest of all the Star Wars. Not as far as like episodes, but each episode is going to be an hour long.
I was on IMDb and because I wanted to see the spelling of the name. I see her only for 1 episode.
I see that too, but I think it's just because there's not much about the episode yet.
Okay. Because the rest, like there are 3 characters that have, like 1 is 8 episodes, the 2 are 8 episodes, and then there's 1 with 7 episodes. And
No,
then
I
Carrie-Anne
don't
Moss
think.
1.
No, I just think that there's not enough information out for it yet, so they're trying not to give too much away.
Okay, that's good. I hope so. If I got spoiled like this, I'll be pretty upset.
Going through the whole thing, you're just thinking it's 1 episode she's in, but she's in every single one. Or you're thinking she's like the main character and she's only in there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do her dirty like that. Because I know with like a Bad Batch, like, and some of the other projects that they've released, like as soon as the episode comes out, that's when all the information for that episode is displayed on IMDb, and even then it's minimal.
Yeah, sure.
It's Bad Batch right now.
That is how they kept Luke coming back in Mandalorian season 2 a secret for months. So yeah, I definitely understand that. One thing before we stop talking about Acolyte, there is a Wookiee. Do you think that
that's right.
Wookiee is a Jedi or just
I hope so.
a regular Wookiee? I hope so too. Because the Jedi Wookiee we saw on the Clone Wars was
Gunji.
Yeah, I forgot his name. It was amazing. I would have loved to have seen more about him. I hope we at some point do. But I would love to see a Wookiee Jedi.
But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. Excited for the Acolyte. We'll be covering the Acolyte as soon as it comes out, so you guys can be excited for that. We are very hyped for it, and can't wait to see how it's going to play out and kind of see what the story is. But that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. So just remember, come back next week. We will be here. Before you guys go, just check in the description below. You can find our link for our Instagram and our Discord. So be sure to join our communities there. And also, if you like cool merch, we got Black Series and some cool t-shirts. So join in the discussion, and we'll see you guys next week. May the Force
be with you
always.